I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. Continuing this series on recognizing God's omnipotence, I want to do this episode on the Corolla spider. Now, the reason I'm doing this specific, creatures in our ecosystem here is because there is this whole notion that we are the product of this random evolution. Now we simply say, nature is responsible for all of these things. Well, these things are right in front of us. Right in front of us. And when we take a close look at it, it becomes very difficult, I would say impossible, to attribute the type of intelligence, the things that we observe. It's impossible to simply put it as the result of just happenstance, some random stuff. There has to be intelligent design. Now, you will hear me say, like everyone else does, nature is responsible for this. And the only nature that I can really accept, or that we should accept, is nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence. That's the only way. Because what happens now is that we say nature, but we don't associate it with God at all. And so let me delve into, again, something that's pretty obvious. You can check it out yourself. And that's apparent with this Corolla spider. So, as a little aside, apparently right now we're trying to replicate the web that a spider spins, right? The spider web, because if that's scaled up, that is more powerful, it's stronger than anything that we have right now. Steel, carbon fiber, all of these things. But the Corolla spider is very, very interesting, and it makes the case for intelligent design based on some very significant differences, some significant abilities that just could not happen randomly. The extremely unique thing about this spider is that, besides living, it goes into a little hole, and it sits there and it waits for something to come by, and then it pops out, grabs something to eat, right? That's it hunts. That's the way it hunts. But what is extremely unique is this spider, around that hole that it sits in, it places silicon crystals. Just think about it for a moment. We started using silicon just recently. We found out about the properties, and so you hear in all these chips. So you look at probably the 40s, the 50s. So it's less than 100 years ago that we really started recognizing the properties of silicon. These spiders have been using it for how many? Millions of years? Hundreds of thousands of years? Thousands of years? Probably millions of years. So they knew the properties of silicon eons before we discovered it. And one of the things that we really need to recognize is spiders. Now we have what we consider the more complex animals, the higher animals. They may communicate between each other, as we do. Our knowledge advances rather rapidly because we have what we know as this tradition of passing things down, of writing. We accumulate knowledge, we write it, and others can learn from it, and so we keep building this great anthill. Possibly the greatest technological civilization on this planet. Spiritually, however, I think we've regressed. So much so that, those who we may consider as the primitive or these undiscovered tribes, and the more not as technologically advanced as ourselves, they attribute things to gods. We have created our own nature, and not recognizing that, or everything that we attribute to nature, these are manifestations of God's omnipotence. So let's get back to that spider. This spider, from as far as we know, because it has no written tradition, it does not record what it learned and passed on. And again, it's unique and it's beautiful because the spider does not have its family around it. It's not like something to say, look at me, look at what I do. This information, and this is, I think, is one of our greatest discoveries if we ever get there. This information is stored somewhere. And again, I'm using terms from my software engineering background, and my database, administration types. So that knowledge, we know that we store that knowledge somewhere. And I believe this. The Creator, this is why I say the laws of nature really are the rules of creation. Because if you think about it, that information of how to use silicon crystals, to identify it first of all, to identify silicon crystals, and then to arrange it and attach this little web so that it can detect vibration by direction and all these things that this spider uses every day. That information has to be passed down. It has to be passed down. Otherwise, the next generation would have forgotten it. So this information is passed down in somewhere. The Creator stores this. And this is how he does it for all these simple, snakes, things that don't have parental nurturing. This information is stored somewhere, and it is retrieved by what methods we don't know, not yet. And this may be, again, one of the greatest discoveries, if we ever make it, is where is this information? This is the information that we look at, and it's part of that AI that's built into cells and organisms so that they can mutate. When faced with challenges in the ecosystems, this is where the information, I believe, is stored. So again, as part of this inspiration, these are things that we look around, we see, and this is happening throughout our ecosystem. They have literally millions of these things around us. This example of this one spider that learned, and it's built in somewhere, that it knows how to identify silicon crystals, knows about the properties of silicon crystals, so that it can utilize this as part of its day-to-day. That's how it hunts. It takes these silicon crystals, put it around that hole where it lives in, puts the web from that, with his leg touching that, knowing that I can tell the direction, which one of these things were like tripwires, which one of these were tripped, so I can go get my food. We look at this and it looks pretty simple. But when you really think about it, and this is what happens, this is very much like when the earth was the center of the universe. We just accepted the earth is the center of the universe. And until 1543, that's the way it was. Up until the 16th, 17th century, again, the earth was flat. It was flat. It's Aristotle and then Columbus going around the world and all these things. But it's just recently that we discard those long accepted notions, of the earth being the center of the universe, the earth being flat. And now, rather unfortunately, really, we have created, since the 19th century, around 1859 and thereafter, we've created this nature. And the reason we do is because obviously we don't think that For instance, in this example, that the Corolla spider, we know it does not read or write, so it does not pass it down in writing. We know that they do not pass it down by some oral tradition, because they don't collect and say, okay, here is the old wise spider that tells the other spiders. So that information is passed down somewhere in some reserve, and it's passed down perfectly. You know, it's like when I talked about the archer fish, those abilities, it's passed down from one to the next in these rather simple organisms, relatively. You know, it's passed down. So there is a store. This information is placed there in such a manner that it is passed down. This is not natural, that a spider can identify of all the materials around it. I can identify silicon, and I know that these special qualities, special properties of silicon, and that I can use, because we didn't know that until recently. So this is the sort of thing that shows an intelligent creator installed within that animal, installed within that creature, the ability to, again, it's like we think of with us intuition. It's intuition, except they fully trust it. They know that that spider knows this is the material that I need. It takes it, it knows, attach a web to it, and I can keep one foot on that web, and when something touches it, I know exactly where it is. Think about how sophisticated that is. We can't do that as yet. You know, to detect vibration over there, and of course, we can use machines to do that. And this is a significant, significant difference, because we use machines, right? We are so technologically advanced, we use machines. We can have a machine that can do all these things and then give us some stimulus that in a form that we can understand. But they take the native, the silicon chip gets touched, the vibration, it just passes it along, and it knows, okay, it's happening. It's like we hear now that, these animals can detect the direction that of smell. So they may have, they have nostrils like us, and yeah, it's coming from this way, and I can just follow it. So all of these things, we see it across animals and plants. The Creator has installed. He has created, and He has installed within them, this concept of nature, right? But nature really, it's the manifestation of God's omnipotence. We see all that wisdom, all that intelligence, as in this example. It gave that intelligence first to find a silicon chip. And knowing that this silicon chip has these special qualities. Now, how does a spider know that? Obviously, it has to come from an outer source. Unless, of course, we have been selling these spiders, and, as I go along, you will see, again, the archer fish and bats and all these things. We've been selling them short. Because really, then they are more talented than us. And they have been for, millennia. So it's obvious then that we cannot keep going along with this concept of random nature has installed these special capabilities. We need to recognize that our Creator, in caring for His creatures, has installed within them the special abilities that they need, just as He has given us. But we are special in that we learn nurturing so that we can be better stewards to all His creations. We need to recognize, we need to challenge these erroneous notions that somehow we are the product of this random. And even though the intelligence is being revealed to us, our science is, as it advances, it's revealing all these, and things that we must question. We must question, and it's for a reason, so that we become a God-fearing people, a God-fearing civilization. A lot of the direction that we are taking now is because we have gone with this concept of nature, which, even though it technically is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, there is no accountability. There are no commandments. So in nature, as we see it, it's just the strong survive and we trash the weak. We take as much as possible during our lifetime. We even want, you see it now, those at the top, they want to live forever so that they can become more ruthless. They can become more selfish. The greed, the demons of greed, of hate, of lust, and in hate, these demons can reside in them, and their will can be usurped by those demons. And because with just nature, there is no accountability, but there is, and we know this. When we look out, you look outside, you will see examples of the manifestations of God's omnipotence. We need to turn back. We need to turn towards God, recognize His omnipotence in all things. And this Corolla spider is one excellent example of Him doing with His creatures everything that they need, not only for themselves, but to show us examples of His majesty, of the greatness of His design and intelligence. We need to recognize this. At this time, I would also like to remind you that my latest book, Humanity's Inflection Point, does encapsulate a lot of these concepts. I wish you would go out and get the word out that it's now out. And as we move forward, we must recognize around us, start recognizing His designs, His omnipotence. And I want to remind you once again, there is no coincidence that you found this video. It's a series of decisions that you made that led you down this path, so that we can all come together and recognize the living, omnipresent, omnipotent God. I want to thank you for taking the time for viewing the video, and until next time, may God bless you and bless us all. Thank you.